Hey, I'm closest schedule Wednesday. And that first sun was for the Sicilian, so we were planning that to be a great. If I'm here, something in our new granddaughter.
We were like, we didn't tell them. Oh!
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're going to start a community advisory on Wednesday, but this Friday, we're going to have a staff partner on so that'll be a big deal.
I've got
Oh, my okay. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, we'll have video, photos, all of that, and then I know that you've been trained to schedule interviews with operators ASM level.
Oh yeah.
So
Maybe it was
I'm trying to get them I think they're going to be in town.
Oh,
yeah. I just heard. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking hopefully we can yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, yes. Well, Dawn, she was pretty sweet. Very good investigator. I want everybody to meet her. I mean, it's great. Why he made this a big story. I don't know. But, I mean, having lived in that house, people who live there are very interesting. Oh, absolutely. Not to around it. Oh, yeah. Well, no.
The plan was to do something.
Yeah, we were very excited about that. Yeah, it's great. But yeah, I have it on a little more ordinary than
I don't know why we did that. It makes the difference for me.
well, absolutely. The predictability of energy.
Well, what else they're gonna have to give him other assignments.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started. Megan, if you want to step up, we're going to talk about the revitalizing the Ellisonville Road corridor. And thank you, Megan, for being with us tonight and sharing this information that's been brought forth by you and the committee that put this together.
Yes, thank you. Megan Vukasich, Director of Planning and Zoning. I'm just here tonight to discuss the Allison Road Corridor Study, which was really completed last year, and we've been working the last couple of months on kind of an implementation strategy for this study. So excited to present what that study was all about, what the results were, and then what we are going to be doing next. So the purpose of this study was really to examine the road.
We do have one councilor, Councilor Barr, is remote tonight, and I believe that she's in the meeting as we, is she? Johnson, can you hear us?
You cut out for a little while. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully the audio is a little bit better. I lost you there for a little bit.
Okay.
Great. Jocelyn, can you hear me? Because I stopped talking when I heard a little bit of feedback.
I can hear you now. Thank you.
Great. So the purpose of the Allisonville Road Corridor Study was to examine the roadway character, adjacent land uses, bicycle and pedestrian facilities, and other elements that define the corridor today. And then also to communicate a vision for both public and private investment and to ensure the corridor remains a valuable commercial destination for surrounding residents in the city of Fishers as a whole. So the corridor itself, the area that we were looking at in this study, it encompassed 2.2 miles of the corridor, which was 344 acres. It included 219 parcels under 165 different ownership. And so you see the boundary of that in this image here with that yellow line. That's the area that we really focused on. But I do want to say that the corridor, for the purposes of our community, really extends from 96th Street up to 146th Street. So HWC and their portion focused on this area, but when we talk about the corridor, we're talking about the entire Allisonville Road corridor. So the process that we went through first was to cast a vision, reach a consensus was step 2, form a plan, and then take practical action steps. So this just gives you an idea of how we went about this process from start to finish. So a large part of the study was community engagement, and this was conducted in last summer 2022. And there were several elements to that community engagement. First is that we formed a steering committee. This committee was made up of 14 members of the community. It included residents, business owners, and elected officials. Some of the members of the committee are in the audience today. We also held focus group meetings. So we had 3 different focus groups. One was focused on businesses. The second was on restaurant owners specifically. And then the third was on residents. I think some of the participants from those focus groups are also in the audience tonight. So appreciate their support throughout that process. We also held a farmers market table in the summer to get some feedback from farmers market participants. And then we held an online survey, which we got over 1,600 responses on that online survey, which compared to, let's say, the Nickel Plate Trail Master Plan, I think we were under 1,000 on that. And so this was great results and great numbers to see for that online survey. And then we did hold a traditional community workshop, which was at City Hall. We had over 100 participants as a part of that meeting. So the plan includes both short-term and long-term goals around these 3 central themes. So this includes land use and redevelopment, streetscape character, and connectivity. HWC, who completed this study for us, did include implementation tools for how we would achieve these recommendations, and this included city-led capital projects, public-private partnerships to serve as catalyst projects, grants or incentive programs to incentivize some investment on private development, expansion of our neighborhood beautification grant, city acceptance of private roads, and updating the zoning code to make sure that new development aligns with what we would like to see. If you do take a look at the plan, you'll see that there are concept plans and renderings included in that document. Those are to be visual guides and are conceptual to paint a picture of what development or redevelopment could look like along this corridor. So much like the Fishers 2040 plan, this is a guiding document. And it's to be used when making decisions about future development. So I just want to be clear that those renderings that were included in the plan are not guaranteed to happen. They just paint a picture of what development could look like in the future. So after reviewing the results of this plan, we came up with a plan of how we are going to implement the results of the study. And so what we chose to focus on is really greening the corridor, enhanced connectivity, and when we talk about connectivity, we're largely talking about bicycle and pedestrian connectivity, collaboration with local business partners, and that could include parking lot and site enhancements of those private properties. So major projects, capital projects that are going to be underway here in the next couple of years is a roundabout at 96th Street in Allisonville, a roundabout at 116th in Allisonville, and then the new White River Park. So I'm going to go over some of these in more detail. So the first is greening the corridor. One of the assets of the corridor that we identified in the study is the mature trees in this area of Fishers. So we really wanted to focus on boosting green space and enhancing the streetscape to achieve vibrancy and improved care for the corridor. So the city is in early stages of these improvements. This is an image taken recently of one of our public works employees. But these new median designs and beautification efforts are already in the works and will be continuing. We also have two major roadway improvements underway. The first, as I mentioned, was 96th Street in Allisonville, and the second is 116th in Allisonville. Both of these intersections will be turned into roundabouts. The 96th Street project is anticipated to begin construction this year, and then the 116 roundabout will begin construction in spring of 2024. These intersections are considered gateways for our community, so both to Carmel and to Indianapolis, and will be designed as such with enhanced landscaping. So again, continuing that greening of the corridor with these roadway improvement projects. The White River is already used as an identifying characteristic along the corridor. We have neighborhoods called River Highlands and River Glen, so this is a defining feature currently, but the study suggests continuing to promote the White River as an identifying characteristic for the area by incorporating landscape elements and art along Allisonville. Additionally, the City of Fishers has plans for a White River Park, which is set to open in 2025. This is a 125-acre park adjacent to the White River. It's located at the intersection of 96th Street and Allisonville, and will provide new green space and recreational opportunities, and will provide public interaction with the White River, which we do not have today. The city is working on the design, and future public input opportunities related to the design will be upcoming later this year. A common theme that we heard throughout the study was connectivity for bicyclists and pedestrians. So this plan recommends dedicated and protected circulation systems throughout neighborhoods that connects key destinations of the corridor. This is suggested to be done primarily through the internal street network. So you'll see that highlighted here in the purple line. And enhanced crossings along the major roadways to ensure greater pedestrian safety. So the way to achieve this internal pedestrian network, because a lot of this is private property, would really be to address the private roads and internal connectivity through that process with working with commercial property owners. So we've had this conversation several times at council about these private roads. We're focused on other areas of the city right now, but this plan does suggest that we continue that process through the Allisonville corridor to take over some of these private roadways. So as with the other discussions, this would be an ongoing initiative and it would require coordination and cooperation with the private property owners. And so it's something that we'll continue to pursue. Another asset of the corridor is the local businesses that really bring pride to the area. That's something that we notice a lot of is how prideful residents are of these local businesses in the area. And so the study recommends providing incentives for site and building improvements on these private properties along the corridor. So this could include landscape plantings, outdoor activity areas, sustainable stormwater infrastructure, signage, and facade enhancements. City staff has been meeting with businesses along the corridor since we wrapped up the study to really learn more about how we can partner to incentivize these types of improvements. So what's shown on the screen here is pickleball courts that Mashcraft, which is a brewery along the corridor, has converted their parking lot into these pickleball courts. And so this is certainly a beloved feature of the corridor now. I hear this amongst residents quite frequently. And then here's another example of parking lot improvement. So this was additional landscaping islands that were constructed in the parking lot, which really adds vibrancy to the area. It was really a simple landscaping feature in the middle of that parking lot, but it does make it a more enjoyable place to be. And then the purpose, the hope is that all of these improvements that have been mentioned so far really spur additional private investment in the aging corridor to ensure it remains a successful commercial area. So in March 2023, CRG Residential and the City of Fishers broke ground on River Place, which is a $135 million mixed-use project at the northwest corner of 96th Street and Allisonville Road. This includes apartments, for-sale townhomes, and a commercial retail space, all situated next to the White River Park. Although this is outside of the main commercial area that we looked at in the study, it is an important part of this corridor as it's the end cap and will help establish this gateway of our community. And then lastly, a primary discussion point throughout the study was the potential relocation of Kroger supermarket from its current location. And Kroger was evaluating this potential project of moving to the other side of Allisonville Road throughout the planning process. And so we decided as a committee to look at two redevelopment concepts, one scenario where Kroger stayed and one where Kroger moved. Near the end of the planning process, Kroger did notify us of their intent to move to this new site. And so we do have the concept plan of that scenario where they move included in the study. As this development moves forward, there will be a public meeting held to discuss details of the new building with the neighbors. This meeting date is still to be determined, but adjacent residents can expect to receive a letter in the mail with more details in the coming months when that meeting date is set. With their move, the corridor study looked at what redevelopment might look like for their existing building. I think that's the next question we're going to get. What happens to the old building? And so it's important to note that any redevelopment concept included in the study, as I mentioned earlier, is really just an example of what could be in the future. It is not a rezone. That is not what we're here to discuss tonight. Although there are no plans at this time for redevelopment of that quadrant of the intersection, the site does represent a unique opportunity to address several of the corridor goals. So we are excited to see what redevelopment looks like on that corner. So again, here's just the focus of the plan moving forward and some of the major projects that residents can expect to see in this area. If anyone wants to learn more or sign up to receive email updates, they can do so by going to thisisfishers.com/Allisonville Road. Happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Any questions from the council members or comments?
I just want to say thank you, Megan. I mean, you've done a really good job of leading this project and pulling the input from neighborhoods and businesses together. Really appreciative. Glad to see this plan. And, you know, the fact that I know the mayor has been working on greening the area for a couple of years and working on those, you know, those medians and stuff. We're really glad to see that and looking forward to this moving forward.
Other questions or comments? Brad?
I know Jason's not here, but when we go to design those roundabouts, if we could get right-hand turn lanes in them, so we don't have an over road situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are slip ramps, so to speak, planned for 116th and Allisonville. The other thing I would just comment on, I think Megan and her team did a wonderful job, and I want to thank the residents that took a lot of time out of their busy lives to contribute. I think what was helpful for our staff and informative is when we asked basically what the vision or the feel for this area, what they would like to see. That was very informative. You know, you could run the gamut from strip centers to more intense development like we see in downtown. And what we heard back, what we just think about the general description is, green, neighborhood focused, smaller density or lighter density than what we're seeing in downtown Fishers. All that is really helpful as we start to plot a course accordingly on how we redevelop this area, so that it's something that reflects and celebrates kind of what the residents that call the Allisonville Road corridor home want. And I think we can do that over a period of time. And I think Megan said it well here tonight. A lot of this is vision, so it could be 5, 10 years before some of this transpires. But if we can all be grounded in the same idea of what this could be or needs to be, then we can all kind of align our resources and efforts towards that as we move forward.
Yeah, certainly this is, I really appreciate, Megan, all your work, and Councilor Gifford, Councilor Stoller for your work, and also volunteers. When I moved to Fishers in 1992 with my family, this was kind of this is kind of where it was all happening. A lot of development happened here. A lot of people looked at that as kind of areas where, when you're raising kids, you have the Pizza Hut. If you want to take your kids somewhere, and the Psalms, if you want to go hang out. It was just an area that really showed a lot of development quickly. And to revitalize this area, I think is really important for our community. And those who have been here for a number of years remember that, and also want to celebrate that, but also understand we need to do some reinvesting to get it where we want it to be for the future. So thank you very much for everything you've done for us.
I have a comment. I've heard from a lot of constituents about that area, and I can appreciate us addressing this area, because people like new. New is attractive, and I like the plan, and looking forward to seeing what it turns into being in the future. Thank you.
One thing maybe, Megan, you could touch on, this is on the agenda tonight, and really just kind of walking through why we chose to put it on the agenda and what that vote actually means, because I do think we just want to put a fine point on, no one's asking you to commit a resource or allow for an entitlement tonight. It's just really grounding all of us in the same vision for what this corridor looks like.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is similar to the Fishers 2040 plan, and that is a guiding document. And so the purpose of the vote tonight is a resolution, really just to solidify that we all are in agreement of what that vision is, and that is the vision that is included in this document. So that's really
We're at least 5 of you, if we can't get all of you.
Yes.
So I have a quick question. So for greening the corridor, will the environmental task force be a part of that?
They certainly can and probably should be.
Okay.
We're looking at additional tree plantings along the corridor. Some of that will have to be on private property, but would love to have the environmental group a part of the process.
Go ahead, Selena. I just have a question. We're doing 116th, 96th, and 146th in Allisonville. All these intersections are getting roundabouts done. What's the timing on each of these intersections? Just want to make sure that we're not closing down Allisonville Road, essentially.
Yeah, I think Allisonville Road, I don't want to speak for our engineering department, but I've heard that they're not going to do a full closure at any point. 96th Street's going to go first. That's going to start this year. 116th, that's going to start next year. And then the 146th is already under construction. That's a county project. I don't know the specifics of the timeline, but I can certainly figure that out. And we are coordinating the closure to make sure that it doesn't create any horrendous issues with the traffic.
Sorry.
No, Megan, I just had a question. If you engaged Conner Prairie in the conversation, because to me, Conner Prairie is iconic and it is a staple in that area and a big economic driver. So seeing if they have any ideas as well, because I know they're expanding to the west and they've got a lot of vision and projects in the works. So just was curious if they had been involved in any discussions too.
Yeah, so we identified them as a key stakeholder of the corridor, and so we invited them to participate in the focus group that was a part of the business focus group, and so they did attend that meeting and provided feedback at that time.
And this is I'm on their board, and the mayor and them the mayor of Conner Prairie have had conversations and will continue to have as well.
Great. Well, there were 2 public comments that were passed around the council members I came across. One was for this, one was against it. So we're at stalemate, at least at the public comment arena. So, John, any other questions or comments? I'll go ahead and adjourn our work session. We will re-adjourn at 7 o'clock for the council meeting. Thank you all very much.
Walmart problem. What do they do? It's on the plan.
No, I should.
What's with the transparency?
You got it too before we did.
I bet that's, you know what, that has got me. Oh yeah, what's going on with the cheap ass food you're putting in there? It's not long enough. I don't imagine. I thought it was a little cheap. He thought it was cheap. He said the way it was described, and I said, I've tried to look at it.
I know the rest of it, like, yeah.
Well, he did call me and said, I'll take a look at the design. I didn't know. He said that, you know, the roof will go up and then the hair will go up. Yeah. That's kind of I don't think I said, what I understand doesn't go far enough. He goes, yeah, it kind of takes care of me, but it doesn't take care of me too. So that's what I understood. I said, look, are you going to me? It's a little need to talk to him about. It's too much away.
Yeah.
I mean, because
Yeah. Yeah, I was searching for something okay. No, that's not popped up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll catch up. I think
so you knew about the progress. So John Toohey called me and I didn't know how to. I said, look, you can call the city. I said, look, they're talking about it. Well, no, it's in the report. It says plan. And that was the key word they gave him. And he thinks he got the scoop. So he had that. And I said, look, I haven't heard anything that is a commitment. So I had to sign it. So it could change.
I was on Spyglass, where that neighborhood gets up there on 16th Avenue there. Because the people coming out of, I got Spyglass Falls, they could take a right, go down there and circle back around, and it would slow traffic down. It's so perfect. It would be a perfect place for that. And then
Oh, really?
they complain about. Oh yeah. They complain about. You were at Cherry Hills and you moved to Spyglass. Well, that's called housing incrementalism. Yeah, rather than I go to HSC and all these kids, what about affordable housing? So anybody can live in
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the March 20th Fisher City Council meeting. We do have one council member, Jocelyn, who is remote. Is she on?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Great. Moving on to the announcements. We have one announcement. March is Disability Awareness Month. Councilor Colville, if you want to take just a moment and kind of talk about what's coming up this month as we continue the Disability Awareness Month.
Thank you. So March is National Disability Awareness Month, and for several years, the City of Fishers, along with the Fishers Advisory Committee on Disability and all our community partners, are providing month-long events to provide more opportunities to educate the community on disability inclusion, accessibility, employing people with disabilities, and there's all kinds of events happening. It's kind of towards the end of the month, but this coming week on Thursday, March 23rd, if anyone's interested in what are the local resources available for people with disabilities, it's going to be held from 6 to 7 p.m. at Carmel High School in the main cafeteria. It's the transition fair with a number of vendors and booths and information. The Hamilton County East Public Library is having workshops. You can pick up Ally toolkits. There are yard signs, T-shirts, and information regarding best practices when you're speaking to someone with a disability, and information statistics on disabilities and how to become an ally. And we're just fortunate of all of our partners. And one of the really exciting news that we have to share is that this past week, the City of Noblesville the City Council declared in a proclamation, a resolution, that they are forming the Noblesville Advisory Committee on Disabilities. So I'm happy to report that we now have all our major cities in Hamilton County having established some kind of advisory committees on disabilities. And so now we can start working countywide on our initiatives to provide more opportunities. So really excited that Fishers has been the head and leading this initiative for our county. So I encourage you to learn more about March Disability Awareness Month.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for your leadership as we continue the month here. No presentation, but due to the council committee report, the finance committee met briefly this afternoon, and we recommended approval item 7B, item 8, and item 9. Department reports, Health Department coordination report, which should be attached online. Moving on to the consent agenda, do I have a motion to approve? So moved. I have a motion by Heath. Do I have a second? Second by Selena. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Jocelyn?
And Sean? I'm abstaining from the minutes.
I'm going to step back. And Jocelyn, should we do roll call vote just to make sure? Go ahead and call it, Jay. Thank you.
John Weingart.
Aye.
Cecile Cole.
I'm just abstaining from the minutes.
Okay. Pete Peterson.
Yes.
Brad DeReamer.
Aye.
Lena Stoller.
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear.
Aye.
Crystal Newman.
Aye.
David Giffel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Jenny. Moving on to item 8 on the agenda, R032023A, request to have the Community Capital Development Fund. Lisa?
Hey. For the record, Lisa Bradford, City Controller. The item before you is a request to reestablish the Cumulative Capital Development Fund, also known as the CCD Fund, for 2024. As a reminder, we are required statutorily to reestablish this fund for the next budget year by a certain date in 2023. So that's the item before you. This is not a new tax. As you guys are aware, this tax has been around since 1984. And so what this does is allow us to continue to reestablish and collect the CCD at the 0.05 rate.
Thank you, Lisa. Do Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Johnny.
We do have to have a public hearing. I got it. Anybody wishing to come forward to discuss this matter, please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please. Seeing that there's none, I'll close the public hearing. I do have a motion. Do you have a second? Any questions? Seeing there's no questions, I will have a roll call vote, please, Jenny. And I'm sorry, your poor, God love your voice, and hope you laugh.
John Weingart.
Aye.
Cecilia Cobble. Aye. Pete Peterson.
Yes.
Brad DeReamer.
Aye.
Selena Stoller.
Aye.
Jocelyn Beer.
Aye.
Crystal Newman.
Aye.
David Giffel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, resolution to common council of the city controller to appropriate additional economic development funds.
All right, for the record, Lisa Bradford, the item before you will establish additional funds for the Economic Development Fund. For some background, the Economic Development Fund was established last year with the creation of the food and beverage tax. So during the 2023 budget process, we did not include and bring a budget for you for the Economic Development Fund since the food and beverage tax had not passed. So what this item does is give us a budget in 2023 for this fund, and then going forward, you will see this fund as part of the regular budget process. So for 2024, it'll just be with the general fund, local roads and streets, and NVH. But because of the nature of the food and beverage tax, we waited until it was established to establish the budget.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Pete, do I have a second? Second by Selena. This also requires a public hearing. Anyone wish to come forward to talk about this particular issue, please come forward to state your name and address for the record, please. Seeing that no one's come forward, I'll close the public hearing. I do have a motion. Do I have a second? Any questions?
A comment, if you please.
Sure.
I just, again, want to translate and clarify. This is an administrative task that really just creates a budget line item to capture the revenue from the food and beverage tax. That's probably a good way to describe it. Is that right?
Yes, so it's just creating the budget for the fund for this year, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is just merely a procedural item to establish this so we can actually show our budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
If there are no other questions, I have a motion and a second. Jenny, would you roll call vote, please?
John Weingart.
Aye.
Cecilia Cobble.
Aye.
Pete Peterson.
Yes.
Brad DeReamer.
Aye.
Selena Stoller.
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear.
Aye.
Crystal Newman.
Aye.
David Giffel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10, R032023C, request to adopt the Allison Road Corridor Study.
Good evening, Megan Vuksich, Director of Planning and Zoning. I'm not going to go over the full presentation as I did in the work session, but I did want to highlight some of the items that we did discuss about the Allisonville Corridor Study. Focus of the plan would be greening the corridor, enhanced connectivity, collaboration with local business partners, and then just highlighting some of the major capital projects that we have underway. If anyone's interested in learning more, they can visit this web address on the screen to sign up for email updates.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Pete, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Selena. Any questions? We're covering work session.
I do a question and a comment. My question is my business is located in the corridor area, and one of the things that I did not see in the study was there was a lot of good information about pedestrian and bicyclist access and safety. But in terms of vehicular safety, there's a lot of accidents west of Allisonville on 116th Street. And I didn't know if that should be included in this study or how vehicular safety would be addressed as this new development starts to take place.
Yeah, so we are making some roadway improvements, of course, with the intersection improvements there at 116th and Allisonville, and that will extend a little bit west. I'm not sure exactly the extent of how far that moves west, but we can certainly make sure that those comments are relayed back to our engineering department as they look at those roadway improvements.
If you please, I have seen many accidents in that area, and I just want to be sure that that's kept top of mind as well. And then lastly, a comment, and that is, I just want to commend staff and the citizens and the business owners and the participants of the steering committee who participated in the study. I am really just excited about this attention and vision for this intersection that's important to our entire community, but I especially want to highlight all the people that have participated for months in the crafting of this study. I would be remiss, though, in making a comment that I wish the rollout and the output of this study was just as thoughtful and open and accessible. For many of us, we just received the study just days ago. The press release happened today to share it with the public. And it's a 96-page document that is robust and quite exciting. I wish we could have the enthusiasm and the time as a community to adopt it together. So with that being said for tonight, the question of the resolution, I will be abstaining because I just received this document 5 days ago and have not received any feedback from residents yet on it. So it's an important document. I'm going to abstain tonight. I just wanted to share that with you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Megan, didn't we have that posted on our government site? We had a document posted.
So this has not been publicly available until today, but we did have representatives on the steering committee who have been looking at this plan.
Because I remember us, I know I shared a document that was not as extensive as this, but it had a pretty good outline of what this study ended up being, right?
Yeah, so it was linked on the council agenda as well. That went out last week.
Yes, just a few days ago, and if I could make one additional comment, I wish the presentation of this important study was part of this meeting, the city council meeting, affiliated with the resolution vote, instead of outside of it in a work session. So I have to mention that. Thank you.
All right, any questions or comments? If not, I'll take a roll call vote.
John Weinberg.
Aye.
Cecilia Coble. Aye. Pete Peterson.
Yes.
Roger Reamer.
Aye.
Lena Stoller. Aye. Jocelyn Bear.
I'm abstaining.
Crystal Newman. Aye. David Geffel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Jamie. Moving on to item 11, 032023. Ordinance Fishers, amending chapter 36-118 of the City of Fishers Code.
Good evening, Council. Lindsay Bennett, City Attorney. I'm happy to be back in front of you.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm here tonight on a first reading for an amendment to the police towing ordinance. As you probably know, when there's an involuntary tow within the city, the police department has a list of towing companies that they call, and this ordinance is the ordinance that regulates that process. So the ordinance just updates the towing ordinance to reflect both the police department's current practice as well as current law. Generally, the process stays the same. An RFP is issued by the police department, and then any respondent that meets the requirements of that RFP is placed on a list that they use on a rotational basis whenever they need a tow for like an accident or anything that's involuntary. Some of the updates in the ordinance include that the company must have a Hamilton County location. It's very important to them so that we don't have residents or anybody who is having a tow to have to go, to Indianapolis or Greenfield or outside of the community. We also updated the fee schedule and just did some general cleanup of the terms and citations. We also placed any violations that may occur under the ordinance into the Ordinance Violations Bureau, so that any violators will pay into the OVB and enforcement would be done in city court. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Lindsay?
Page 5. Misspelling on the word business.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will get that changed.
Yeah, I did read.
Yep, I see it right there. 18. Okay. We'll check. Must not have been on my side that day.
Any other questions? If not, at first reading. At first reading. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
We're on to planning and zoning, item 12, R032023D, the rent annexation.
Yes, and I'll present both this item and the next item together. This is for a voluntary annexation of a residential property that is looking to connect to sewer. So the first item is for the adoption of the fiscal plan, and then the next item is for the adoption of the annexation ordinance.
Motion to approve item 12.
I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Smith. Any questions? None? All those in favor, please, we'll do a roll call vote.
John Weingart,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
Cecilia Cobble,
Aye.
Roger Reamer,
Aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear,
Aye.
Crystal Newman,
Aye.
David Gibble.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion to approve item 13. I do have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Selena. Do another roll call vote. I presume there's no questions on this. Great.
Todd Zimmerman is not here. John Weingart,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
Cecilia Cobble,
Aye.
Roger Reamer,
Aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear,
Aye.
Crystal Newman,
Aye.
David Gibble.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 14, consideration of rezone of open space for the Geis Waterfront Park. Last reading.
This is for final reading of a rezone to, for the Geis Waterfront Park to open space, which is the zoning designation of all of our public parks here in Fishers. So formally, this area was under a PUD ordinance, and we are requesting a rezone to be straight zoned to open space. This is for final reading. There was a public hearing at Planning Commission last month, and there were no public comments that were heard.
Motion to approve. I have a motion by Pete. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Selena. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
John Weingart,
Aye.
Cecilia Cobble,
Aye.
Pete Peterson,
Yes.
Roger Reamer,
Aye.
Selena Stoller,
Aye.
Jocelyn Bear,
Aye.
Crystal Newman,
Aye.
David Gibble.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on, since there's no any other unfinished new business, moving on to community comment. If anyone wants to make a community comment, please step forward to the mic, give your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Michael Colby. I live at 7105 Coldyke Drive here in Fishers. And I'm just going to like publicly acknowledge Megan's leadership on the steering committee. I was on that committee, as some of you may know, and there was quite a few people on there. So she did a good job focusing us, getting a good product together, and she should be commended. I'd also like to offer my services should there be a Public Roads Committee. I'd be happy to serve on that committee.
Mike, I think there should be a road named after you. I'm just saying. We'll talk about it. Anybody else wishing to come forward, please state your name for the record. Good evening.
Hey, good to see y'all.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Ross Einhardt at 7704 Creekside Court. And as somebody neighboring in the Sunbus neighborhood, I'm really excited and delighted for the Allisonville Road study. Made for great weekend reading. But we're no stranger to innovation as a city. And innovators know how to iterate. They see what's working and what's not, and they keep iterating and getting better. I see an opportunity for us to do that on our nickel plate trail crossings. So there's one crossing that I think is working really well. You're right in the nickel plate district just north of the station, where the cross traffic is moving relatively slow. And more times than not, when you're crossing, as pedestrians, the traffic will yield. Now, crossings to the north in 106th Street, by those metrics, I haven't experienced working as well. There's less likely that people are going to yield, and the cross traffic is usually moving a lot faster. which is uncomfortable, but also can be quite dangerous. One statistic says that at 20 miles an hour, if you're hit by a car, statistically, out of 10 theoretical people, one person will survive that, or will be killed by that, sorry. But at a higher speed, so 40 miles an hour, 9 of those 10 people would end up dying as a result of that. So speed can really matter there. And I think speed is what really makes the difference between the one that's working and the ones that don't. Another study that I saw highlights that at 20 miles an hour, cars are 4 times more likely to yield to a pedestrian crossing than at closer to 40 miles an hour. So I think we have an opportunity to take what's working at that intersection and look at those other crossings and look at how can we get the design speed of the road down, the speed that feels comfortable in the car to drive through, so that we can reduce that speed, increase yielding to pedestrians, possibly by narrowing lanes. The one that's working has a nice speed table that's pretty prominent, whereas some of the ones to the north, it actually kind of slopes down to the road. So as a driver, when I'm coming up to it, there's not a lot of indication that it's an area I need to explore. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to highlight that as an opportunity I saw for us to just keep building on what's working and iterate and make this better. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come forward? So let's come out. Entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Have a second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Have a great evening.